So you may recall that just last month I covered a game to top corp scam by the name of OnlyUp Parkour Jump Simulator, a game which shamelessly ripped off the highly popular viral video game OnlyUp, but paled in comparison to the original, having horrendously bad controls, little to no thought put into its level layouts, janky physics and a terrible frame rate to boot. Well, considering the Switch is filled with copycat cop-outs, it was only a matter of time until we saw another attempt at the OnlyUp formula, and thus I present to you OnlyUp, a game from publisher Elusor, which doesn't even attempt to distinguish itself from the original namesake, unless you count the fact that it's all one word, but it's clearly another attempt to trick people into thinking they're buying the same game. Now I went ahead and bought this one so you don't have to, and I'm going to show you exactly what you're getting for your money with it. But let's start with the eShop listing, because you do get an inkling of how little effort has gone into this one when the game's description is written in broken English and littered with spelling mistakes, and there is a 30-second eShop trailer for the game, but it shows very little of the gameplay and is set to some soothing harmonic music, which doesn't exactly invoke excitement. Getting into the game though, this is the main menu, a simple set of options, no game title, and a blurry background letting you experience what it's like to have cataracts, but the settings menu has music and sensitivity settings and an overview of the controls. Upon starting the game, we get another overview of the controls, and then we're given our one and only objective, get to the black hole, which if you look up can be seen looming overhead high into the sky. So the objective in the game is to hop our way up the mishmash of random objects and hop into the black hole. Sounds simple enough, the problem is that the game is so fucking broken and the developers have put so little thought and effort into constructing our route to the black hole that it almost becomes an impossible task. Now this is our character, a nondescript surfer looking dude with shitlocks on his head, shades and a flashy looking Hawaiian shirt, and we start our ascent in a serene looking cove. We're given a couple of options to begin with. We can either start up on this structure directly in front of us or head on over to the far right, and I opted for the former, so onward I went, but the moment that I started climbing though and got my first taster of the game's controls, I instantly knew that I was destined to fail. Now, presumably they've used some sort of Unity parkour and climbing system for the climbing mechanics in this one, which in all honesty is a step up from the god-awful climbing in Game to Top Corp's version of the game, but the comparison here is like taking a piece of dog shit and then sprinkling it with some glitter. It looks a little better, but at the end of the day it's still dog shit. Now we can climb and grab onto ledges, pulling ourselves up with all the grace of an obese penguin, and after grabbing a ledge we can also shimmy along it, and the climbing mechanics kind of feel a little bit like the Uncharted games as we can lean out towards nearby ledges and then hop between them. The problem is that getting your character to do what you actually want it to do is near impossible, as they've applied climbable ledges to almost all horizontal surfaces and he simply just doesn't know what you want him to do. Like here, I'm just trying to climb up this tower and get up onto the top, but I just keep switching and grabbing between the wrong surfaces, and the camera system really isn't making things any easier. It's also incredibly glitchy, with you repeatedly teleporting backwards whenever you move too quickly, and many of the objects are just not designed to be climbed at all. Now, aside from the climbing, you're able to walk in the game, which makes traversing narrow platforms a little easier, and you can also crawl, which appears to serve no other purpose than to give you an up-close shot of your character's arsehole. While the control scheme covers most of these things, there are some things that it doesn't cover, like the ability to wall run. And this is yet another key problem with the game, as unlike the real OnlyUp, where you had clearly defined routes available to you, in this OnlyUp, everything is trial and error, and it's pretty much a lottery as to whether you can actually make a jump or whether a surface is actually climbable. Now I put about an hour or so's worth of gameplay into this one and wasn't able to progress past the first 100 metres. Heading up to the left hand side, I managed to fumble my way across the first couple of objects and came to a fork in the road, so opted to try and scale this large building. But the tilted angle of it made it incredibly difficult to navigate, and when I did finally get through, I overshot a springboard and plummeted to the ground. Heading up to the right hand side, it took me a lifetime to work out how exactly to scale this pylon, and once I got to the top of it, I encountered an incredibly difficult jump, and again, this is part of the problem. There's no real sense of progression in this one, and it doesn't start off easy and then slowly pile on more challenging terrain for you to navigate. It's just hard as nails from the get-go, throwing incredibly precise jumps at you, with large gaps for you to breach and tiny platforms for you to land on. Anyway, I give the pylon another go, and after several attempts, actually managed to make a jump to one of its higher rungs, which led me to an even bigger pylon, and the longest ladder climb in gaming history, on par with even Dark Souls 3 ladders, as your character just minces his way up it and the camera constantly zooms inwards and outwards. At the top, I found a bunch of tanks and platforms to jump across, easy enough. But then my character did his usual trick of climbing up something that I didn't want him to, and whilst trying to walk across these beams, I once again fell to my doom. It's worth noting that the game does also have a checkpoint system, but I never managed to climb high enough to activate it. Finally, I gave the left hand route one last try, and at the fork in the road I opted to try the other route instead of the tilted building. Here though, I found more tilted buildings, which once again turned out to be a struggle to navigate, and I eventually found myself here with no obvious route left to take. Now logically, the only possible jump available was over to the tilted bridge, which looked impossible, but rather surprisingly, I somehow managed to make it. Once again though, whilst trying to work my way around it, I climbed up, hoping to carefully walk my way across its beams, but lo and behold, my character just climbed over them, and down I went. So that was the final straw for me, and I don't feel like the gameplay footage or my description does justice to just how frustrating it is to play this one. Everything from the climbing mechanics and physics to the choice of objects and overall level layout is so poorly implemented that just getting a few meters off the ground feels like a mammoth task. And while it is a step up from Game to Top Corp's attempt, like I said, dog shit is still dog shit. If you enjoyed OnlyUp on the PC and were hoping for a Nintendo Switch counterpart, I'm afraid that you won't find it here. Once again, we have a shallow cash grab of a game, attempting to ride on the success of the original and failing miserably. So take my advice, steer clear of this one, as it'll only make you feel down. A huge thank to the Patreons of the channel for their ongoing support, and to you the viewers for watching. If this one helped you out, drop a like and leave your thoughts down below, and if you enjoy this kind of content, then consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time though, take care of yourselves, and game on.